Hello learners, welcome to the session on dealing with the unions and its association. I am Dr. L.K. Jana and I am going to take you through understanding three things. One is the Trade Union Act 1926. Number two is recognition of trade union. And number three is the rights of recognized union. First, let's understand the Act itself, the Trade Union Act 1926. But before that, let's try to revamp or recall the very objective of the trade union. Why a trade union is? Trade union is a voluntary organization of workers relating to a specific trade, industry, or a company, and they are being formed to help and protect their interest and welfare by collectivist actions. Trade unions are the most suitable organizations for balancing and improving the relations between the employees and employers. They are formed not only to cater to the workers' demands, but also for imparting discipline and inculcating in them the sense of responsibility. The trade unions aim to secure fair wages for workers and improve the opportunities for promotions and training. Trade unions safeguard security of tenure and improve the working condition of the people. They also think about improving the working and living conditions of the workers. They provide them with educational, cultural and recreational facilities, facilitate technological advancement by broadening the understanding of the workers. They also help them in improving the levels of production, productivity, discipline, and also they try to foster a high standard of living. They promote individual and collective welfare, and thus they correlate the workers' interest with that of their industry. They do take participation in management for decision making in connection to workers, and to take disciplinary action against the workers who commits indisciplinary action also. So keeping that in mind, let's move on to understand the Trade Union Act 1926. This act is called as the Trade Union Act. It is extending to whole of the India, and it has come into force by central government by the notification in the official gadget. Several definitions which is listed in the section 2 of the act. One is about the appropriate government, which means the relations to trade union whose objects are not confined to one state, but rather the central government in relations to other trade union, the state government, and unless there is anything repugnant in the subject or context, whoever comes, it is as the part of appropriate government. Second, it's the executive. Executive means the body, by whatever name we call it, to which the management of the affairs of a trade union is entrusted. Then comes the office bearer. In the case of trade union, it includes any member of the executive thereof, but does not include an auditor. Similarly, registered office means the office of a registrar of a trade union, which is registered under this act as the head office thereof. Registrar. The registrar of a trade union is appointed by the appropriate government under section 3 and includes any additional or deputy registrar of trade union. There is another important thing that we need to focus on, learners, is the trade dispute. The trade dispute means any kind of dispute that is happening between employer and workman, or between workman and workman, or between employer and employer, which is connected with employment or non-employment, or the terms of employment, or the conditions of labor of any person and workman. Over here means all the people, whoever are employed in trade or industry, whether or not in the employment of the employer with whom the trade dispute arises. Now comes another important section, learners, that is section 2H, which is talking about trade union. Trade union means any kind of combination, whether it is temporary or permanent, which is formed primarily for the purpose of regulating the relations between workman and employer, or between workman and workman and employer, or between workman and workman and between employer and employer, for imposing restrictive condition on the conduct of any trade or business and includes any federation of two or more trade union. The law relating to the registration and protection of the trade union is contained in the Trade Union Act 1926, but this has come into force from 1927. So in common parlance, if we see the definitions that we discussed till now, trade union means any kind of association of workers that happens in one or more occupations. The object of trade union formation is the protection and promotion of the interest of the working class, and trade union have a homegrown philosophy based on workers' experience and their psychology. Let's talk about some of the definitions. I think one of the definition is also continuing the definition. One of the definition is executive. Executive means the body of which the management of the affairs of a trade union is entrusted. Another definition that is very important, that is called as a trade dispute. A trade dispute, which I have spoken about it, is called a dispute that is happening between an employer and workman, which I have already told you about. Let's move on to the registration of trade union. I think that this has been outlined in chapter 2. The chapter 2 talks about one thing that section 3 demarcates is to appoint the registrar. The appropriate government should appoint a person to be the registrar of trade union for each state. The appropriate government also can appoint as many additional and deputy registrars of trade union as it thinks fit for the purpose of exercising and discharging under the superintendence and direction of the registrar, and when such power and functions of the registrar under this act itself. Similarly, the modes of registration, the minimum requirement of registration of a trade union, which got amended in 2001. Let me bring it over here. It says any 7 or more members of a trade union may, by subscribing their names to the rules of the trade union and by otherwise complying with the provision of the act with respect to registration, they can apply for the registration to be a part of the Trade Union Act. Provided, learners, you need to remember that no trade union of workmen shall be registered unless at least 10% or 100 of the workmen, whichever is less, engaged or employed in the establishment or industry with which it is connected, are the members of such trade union on the date of making the application of registration. Provided further that no trade union of workmen shall be registered unless it has on the date of making application not less than 7 persons as its member who are workmen engaged or employed in the industry or establishment with which it is connected. Suppose where an application has been made, which is also a clause under subsection 1 of the Act, as I can recall, for the registration of a trade union, such of the applications shall not be deemed to have become invalid merely by reason of the fact that at any time after the date of the application, but before the registration of trade union, some of the applicant but not exceeding half of the total number of persons who made the application have ceased to be members of the trade union or have given some kind of notice actually in writing to the registrar to disassociate themselves from the application itself. There are several commentary also has come on this 2001 amendment. For example, one of it is understood that any organization to form trade union under the Trade Union Act 1926, it should have minimum of 7 employees working in that organization. For the purpose of registration, a minimum of 7 members are necessary to form a trade union. Please remember this, learners. The reason for fixation of minimum 7 members is to encourage the formation of more trade union so that the trade union can grow. So under the Trade Union Act 1926, employers can register their trade union, and also, in a case that has come up in Madras High Court, retired employees also can form the unions under the Trade Union Act 1926. I would like to bring in this context a recent case that has happened, that is about Karur Vaisya Bank Retirees Association versus Deputy Commissioner of Labour Civil Court. The court has held that the words that was used in Section 2G of the Act 1926 are that the dispute between employers and employees, which means that even the past employees, that is the employees ceased to be in employment, are also entitled to be a part of a trade union for the purpose of raising a dispute. That being the case, the authority was not right in refusing to register the trade union, and the order of rejection is incorrect. So the word used under the Act of 1926 is that the persons who are actually engaged or employed in an industry in which the trade union is connected, and it might be including all the persons irrespective of whether they are in service or they are retired. So when the Act itself provides an extended meaning and definition, that's why the authority concerned cannot narrow the definition to just simply reject the application, as it would definitely be against the very object of the Trade Union Act itself and is also violative of Article 19(1) of the Constitution. Therefore, the court has clarified over here in this case that the retired employees would not be permitted to join hands with the Association of Current Employees. It held that the nature of grievances faced by either of the employees were on a different path, and both could not be mingled together for espousing the same to the industry with which they are actually being connected. Section 5 of the Act was talking about the application of registration. This is very important. Every application for registration of a trade union shall be made to the registrar, and this need to be accompanied by a copy of the rules of the trade union and a statement of the following, particularly like say the names, occupations and addresses of the members making the application. In the case of a trade union of workmen, the names, occupation and addresses of the places of work of the members of the trade union making the application, the name of the trade union and the address of its head office. Similarly, the titles, names, ages, address and occupations of the trade union. For example, if the trade union has already been existing for 1 year or more, for its registration, the members can submit all the details such as their general statement of assets and liabilities of the trade union to be registered by the registrar trade union itself. Section 6 of the Act deals about the provisions to be contained in the rules of a trade union. This has also been amended in 2001. For registration of the trade union, the provision or rules mentioned a set of it will be acting on to file the case against or to contain the rules of a trade union, like say for the cause, like the name of the trade union, the object of the trade union, the general funds of the trade union, or say the maintenance list of members of the trade union, the payment of a minimum subscription, that is also very important. So that says that the trade union which the payment of a minimum subscription by members of the trade union which shall not be less than 1 rupee per annum for the rural workers, 3 rupees per annum for workers in other organized sectors, whereas 12 rupees per annum for workers in any other case. Similarly, this is described about the disciplinary actions, the manner in which the rules shall be amended, and the funds of the trade union need to be safeguarded, the annual audits, and the procedures how to wind up the trade union all being depicted in Section 6 over there. So Section 7 talks about the power to call for the particulars and to require alterations of name. Suppose if registrar is not satisfied with the information that is provided by the members of the trade union which is going to be registered, registrar is having the power to call its member for submitting the additional and required information for registering the trade union. If the name of the trade union is already existed or is similar to other trade union name, then the registrar is having the power to order for changing of the name. So registration is all been enlisted in Section 8, wherein it is saying that all the documents that submits with the detailed information is supposed to be correct by the members of the trade union, going to be registered, and the registrar, basing on those informations, will go for registering the trade union. Section 9 deals with the certificate of registration. The registrar registering a trade union under Section 8 that we have discussed called as the registration. He may issue a certificate of registration in the prescribed format. And similarly, section 9A talks about the minimum requirement about membership of a trade union. A registered trade union of workmen shall at all times continue to have not less than 10% or 100 of the workmen, whichever is less. So learners, please remember this word, that a registered trade union of workmen shall at all times continue to have not less than 10% or 100 of the workmen, whichever is less, but subject to a minimum of 7 engaged or employed in an establishment or industry with which it is connected as its members. Then comes cancellation of registration, section 10. Registrar of the trade union can cancel the registration of the trade union in following circumstances. When trade union registration certificate has been obtained by fraud and say other illegal means, there is a display the rules and regulations of the Trade Union Act. So when there is no minimum required number of members being present in the trade union, at that point of time, registrar of the trade union can cancel the registration. Section 11 talks about the appeal. If registrar of the trade union stops registration of the trade union or withdrawal of the registration, then these members belongs to the trade union can appeal to the labor court or an industrial tribunal within their jurisdiction. Over there, court may have the power to dismiss the appeal or pass an order to directing the registrar to register the union and to issue a certificate of registration. Section 13 talks about the features of a registered trade union. Registered trade union basically will have a perpetual succession. Perpetual succession means will not stop after the death of the member of the trade union. Every registered trade union, they will have a common seal. Every registered trade union can acquire and hold both the movable and immovable properties. Every registered trade union can sue others, and every registered trade union can be sued by others also. Section 14 talks about certain acts that do not apply to the trade union. This is very important. So there are a set of acts that doesn't apply to the trade union, like the Societies Registration Act 1860, the Cooperative Society Act 1912, the Companies Act 1956. So trade union can be registered only under the Trade Union Act 1926. Then comes to chapter 3. Learners, the chapter 3 is talking about the rights and liabilities of a registered trade union. A registered trade union has the right actually to maintain a general fund and a separate fund for the political purposes. The object to which the general funds may be spent, it is like the purposes on the general fund spent are in the form of payment of salaries, allowances to the office bearers of the union, payment of expenses for the administration of the union, including other expenses spent on defending any legal proceedings, settlement of trade disputes, special allowances to the members of the trade union on account of death, sickness or accident, compensation to members for loss arising out of any kind of trade dispute, providing educational, social and religious benefits to the members, issue of assurance policies on the lives of members and also against sickness, accidents, unemployment insurance, or providing for publications of periodicals for the use of which is intended for the members' benefits. So this is all defined in section 15. Section 16 talks about construction of a separate fund for political purpose. So apart from the primary objectives, a trade union may have a set of political objects. As per section 16, as I said, a registered trade union may constitute a separate fund in addition to the general fund, and the payment of such a fund shall be utilized for serving civic and political interests of its members. The funds can be utilized for a set of purposes. For example, if a trade union hold any meeting or distribution of any literature or document in support of any candidate for elections, for maintenance of any person who is a member of any legislative body constituted under the constitutions, for convening any kind of political meeting, the registration of electors for selection of a candidate for the legislative body. So the funds collected for the political purpose shall not be clubbed with the general fund. Learners, please remember this. No workman is compelled also to contribute in this fund, and the non-payment in this fund cannot be made a condition for admission to the trade union. Section 17 deals about the immunity from punishment from criminal conspiracy. Here it says that the no office bearers or members of a registered trade union will not be punished under the Section 120B punishment criminal conspiracy of IPC. IPC means the Indian Penal Code, regarding the matters of the spending of the general fund for the proper purpose. Section 18 talks about immunity from civil suits to certain cases. It is talking about no suits or other legal proceedings shall be maintainable in any civil court which is against any registered trade union in a set of activities, like if there is a delay in the matter relating to the members of the trade union regarding kind of disputes or contract of employment, trade union or its members showing interest or interfering in matters for the trade or business, trade union or members showing interest or interfering in the matters of employment of a person, or for the removal of labor or compensating and remunerating employees. So these are the things which is not being liable for it. Similarly, coming to Section 19, this is called as an enforceability of agreements. It says, notwithstanding anything contained in any other law for the time being in force, an agreement between the members of a registered trade union shall not be void or voidable merely by reason of the fact that any of the objects of the agreement are in restraint of a trade. Right to inspect books of the trade union is listed in Section 20, wherein the account books of a registered trade union and the list of the members that is thereof shall be open to inspection by office bearers or members of a trade union at such times as may be provided in the rules. Rights of minors to the memberships, that is defined in Section 21. It says that any person who has attained the age of 15 years can be a member of the registered trade union and can enjoy all the rights of being a member. Section 21A talks about the disqualification of office bearers of a trade union. It says that person can be disqualified for being chosen as and for being member of the executive or any other office bearer of a registered trade union if he has not attained the age of 18 years or he has been convicted by a court in India or any office involving any kind of moral turpitude and sentenced to imprisonment unless a period of 5 years has elapsed since his release. Section 24 talks about amalgamation of trade union. That means any two or more registered trade union may become amalgamated together as one trade union with or without the dissolution or division of the fund of such trade union, or either or any of them, provided that the votes of at least one half of the member of each or every such trade union entitled to vote are recorded, and that at least 60% of the votes recorded are in favor of the proposal. Section 25 talks about the notice of change of name or amalgamation. Suppose in case of change in the name of the trade union, written notice of the change of the name must be signed by secretary and the 7 members who actually been the foundational members of the trade union, and this document is required to be sent to the registrar of the trade union. Suppose in case of an amalgamation of the trade union, the written notice of an amalgamation must be signed by the secretary and 7 members of the trade union, and this also is required to be sent to the registrar of the trade union. And trade union name should not match with any other trade union name, that need to be ensured. Section 26 talks about the effects of change of name and amalgamation. The change in the name of a registered trade union shall not affect any rights or obligation of the trade union or render defective any legal proceedings by or against the trade union, and any legal proceedings which might have been continued or commenced by or against it by its former name may be continued or commenced by or against it by its new name. Section 27 talks about the dissolution. Notice of dissolution of a trade union need to be signed by secretary and 7 members of the trade union, and it also need to be sent to the registrar of the trade union within 14 days from the date of the dissolution of trade union. If the registrar satisfies with the provisions and rules followed by the members of the trade union for dissolution, then only he will confirm the dissolution. Then the funds need to be divided by the registrar among its members if there is no rule mentioned by the trade union in distribution of funds. Section 28 deals about return. There shall be sent annually to the registrar or before any date as may be prescribed a general statement, audited in the prescribed manner, keeping all the receipts and expenditure of every registered trade union during the year ending of the 31st December next proceeding year, preceding such prescribed date and of the assets and liabilities of the trade union existing as on 31st day of December. So together with this general statement, there shall be sent to the registrar a statement also showing that all the changes of the office bearers made by the trade union during the year to which the general statement refers, together with a copy of the rules of the trade union that is corrected up to the date of the dispatch. So this is all about the chapter 3. Now if we come to the chapter 4, which is talking about the regulation, section 29 talks about the power to make regulations. The appropriate government, that I was referring over in section 2 over there, the appropriate government may make regulation for the purpose of carrying out effects the provisions of this act. So in particular and without prejudice to the generality of the foregoing power, such regulations may provide for all or any of the following matters. Say for example, the manner in which the trade union and the rules of the trade union shall be registered, or the fees being payable, the transfer of registration, the manner in which and the qualification of person by whom the accounts of registered trade union or any class of such union are audited. Section 30 talks about the publication of regulations. Here it is talking about that the regulations so made is required to be published in the official gazette, and on such publications shall have effect as if enacted in this act. Chapter 5 talks about the penalties and procedures. That talks about section 32, that is called as the supplying false information regarding trade union. It says that any person who with intent to deceive gives to any member of a registered trade union or to any person intending or applying to become a member of such trade union any document purporting to be a copy of the rules of the trade union or of any alterations to the same which he knows or has reason to believe is not a correct copy of such rules or alterations as for the time being in force, or any person who with the like intent gives a copy of any rules of any unregistered trade union to any person on the pretense that such rules are the rules of a registered trade union. If these informations are there, then obviously they shall be punishable with fine, which may be extended to 200 rupees. Then section 31 talks about the failure to submit the returns. The trade, provided that they are not making any kind of returns within the defined date, then obviously they will be penalized. Any person who is willfully making any false entry, shall be punishable with fine, which may be extended to 500 rupees also. So, section 32 deals about supplying false information regarding the trade union also. And in this case, if there is something being recorded or come to the notice, then they will be punishable with fine, which may be extended to 200 rupees. There is section 33 deals about the cognizance of offence. So cognizance of offence says that no court inferior to that of a presidency magistrate or a magistrate of the first class shall try any offence of this act. So this is all about, with the 5 chapters and 33 sections, the Trade Union Act 1926 conveys the importance of formation of trade union, registration of trade union, and the duties and responsibility of its union members. Then comes next is the recognition of a trade union. The need for recognition of a trade union by employer was felt actually by the working class to ensure that appropriate modes of collective bargaining is taking place and that the agreement which were collectively reached were mutually being observed. Therefore, it was considered that recognition of trade union actually was a step towards securing reasonable levels of pay and working conditions. So this in turn will be achieved if workers are standing united and representing their demands through a trade union which is adequately recognized. So it was late 1990s that it was realized that trade unions have become a massive bureaucratic body with the interest and agenda of those who compromise its membership. However, actually, you may see present there is a growing debate as to the extent to which they represent and pursue the interest of its members. So it is often argued that this is slight and coincidental. So trade union recognition work, what we are talking about it at present, is as much in the interest of the employer as it does in the interest of the workers. The recognition of a trade union has several repercussions in defending people on disciplinary charges, accompanying the members in meeting with the managers and negotiating the local conditions. Especially the recommendation of the Royal Commission on Labour we need to focus on. And similarly, the recommendation by the National Labour Commission 1969 comes in play on the recognition of the trade union. The Commission has strongly recommended in 1969 saying that trade union registration must be mandatory. The registrar must be time bound to decide the issues of registration. The effective measures are supposed to be taken for cancellation if the unions are not complying with the conditions regarding filing of the return of the memberships. Over here, I would also like to bring one case that was built up by the Maharashtra Recognition of Trade Union and Prevention of Unfair Labour Practices 1971. This is an act to provide for the recognition of trade union for facilitating collective bargaining for certain undertaking, to state their rights and obligations, to confer certain powers on unrecognized unions, to provide for declaring certain strikes and lockouts as illegal strikes and lockouts, to define and provide for the prevention of certain unfair labor practices, to constitute courts for carrying out the purpose of according recognitions of trade union, and for enforcing the provisions related to the unfair labor practices. So let's talk about what is the definition of recognition. When I'm saying that recognition of trade union is important, we need to know about what is the definition. A union must be recognized before it may effectively represent any employees. So once a union is recognized, it serves as the bargaining agent for the workers in a particular bargaining unit. So an employee may not circumvent the union, because recognition means it is entailing the willingness to negotiate with a view to strike a bargain, and this involves a positive mental decision. What is the need for recognition? The recognition of trade union is actually the backbone of collective bargaining. It has been debated time and again, but in spite of the government stated policy to encourage trade union, there is no enforced central legislation on this subject. There are, however, voluntary code of discipline and legislations in some state. So over here, we need to also think about the definition of collective bargaining, because that is the reason they got the recognition. It says the performance of the mutual obligations of the employer and the representative of the employee to meet at reasonable times and confer in good faith with respect to wages, hours, and other terms and conditions of employment. In the absence of any central legislation, management in several states have refused to recognize a trade union on these grounds. I think there are 5 grounds I would like to bring it to you, learners. One is most of the office bearers of the union were outsiders, and sometimes those disapproved by the management, particularly by politicians and employees. Say the third point will be the union consisting of only small number of employees. There are many rival unions in existence, or the Trade Union Act was not registered under Trade Union Act 1926. So this is all about the recognition part of it, but the conditions of recognition, if you will see, the trade union got amended in 1947, wherein the section 25D has provided that a trade union will not be entitled for recognition by order of a labor court under section 25E unless it is fulfilling certain conditions. Number 1, that all its ordinary members are workmen employed in the same industry or in industries closely allied to or connected with another. Number 2, that it is representative of all the workmen by the employer in that industry or those industries. Number 3, that its rules do not provide for the exclusion from the membership of any class of the workmen referred in clause B of the act itself. And the number 4 is that its rules do not provide the procedure for declaring a strike. Number 5 says that its rules provide that a meeting of its executive will be held at least once in every 6 months. And number 6, that it says that it is a registered trade union and it has complied with all the provisions of the act. Next comes re-recognition of a trade union. The Trade Union Amendment Act 1947, 28H, the section, forbids the registered trade union whose recognition is withdrawn under subsection 3 of section 28G to make an application for re-recognition up to 6 months from the date of withdrawal. Now let's friends come to an understanding of what are the rights of the recognized trade union. The recognized unions have a set of rights, which is like they have a right to raise the issues with the management. They have a right to collect the membership fees within the premises of the organizations. They have the right or ability to demand the check-off facility. They have the ability to put up a notice board on the premises for union announcements. They have the ability to hold the discussions with employees it is suitable place within the premises. They have a right to discuss the members' grievance with the employer. They have a right or ability to inspect beforehand a place of employment or work of its members. They can go for nominations of its representative or on committees formed by the management for industrial relations purpose, as well as in statutory bipartite committees. So multiplicity of trade union actually that cannot create a problem for the employer and the trade union. Therefore, the recognition of trade union as a negotiating agent is a business necessity. Please remember this one, learners. Recognition of a trade union as negotiating agent actually is a business necessity. So therefore, sooner when the central legislation is passed and industry and business houses they started actually dealing with such recognized unions, it will be the best part to be. So because such a device basically that will be beneficial for both the parties, both the employer and the trade union, because it provides the strength, it provides the opportunity for understanding and mutual appreciation, and thus it provides an opportunity for having a very matured employer and union relationship. So with this, friends, we are coming to a close of the third part of the subject called dealing with unions and associations. We have discussed about the Trade Union Act 1926. We have discussed about how to get the recognition of a trade union, how to get a re-recognition of the trade union, and what are the different rights that the recognized union used to have. Thank you so much for this.